23. Hi everyone, it's Kendall here, and what I have for you today is week number 23 of our Grandma's Kitchen Sewalong, which is hosted by Pat Sloan over at her website, ilovetomakequilts.com. This is the third last block, so after this we only have 2 more weeks to go, and our quilts, I'm sure, are all coming together beautifully. You would have noticed from last week and again here now that I did do a bit of a different layout for mine, and I do already have it finished except for adding the borders. If you haven't done so already, jump over to Pat's website, download this week's free pattern, come back here, and I'll show you how I do it. We have another simple block this week, folks, where we're just putting some sew and flips on our 2 larger squares, and then we can piece it all together, the only 2 units we need to make. So to start, we will start with the sew and flips, and this week, just for something a little bit different and to show you that I can do it, I am going to do the first sew and flip in the traditional method. So for the traditional sew and flip method, we start by drawing a diagonal line on the back of one of our dark squares, and then we line that up perfectly in the corner of our larger square. We'll take that to the machine and we're going to stitch, but I don't like to stitch on the line. I prefer to stitch just to the right of the line, like 1 thread width. So your drawn line should still be visible with your stitching running right next to it. What this allows for is when we fold that back over, there is a little bit of fabric that will be taken up by those stitches and the fold of the fabric. And in that way, you can ensure that your edges will all still meet up and that everything will be perfect. And with our stitching now done, what we need to do first is fold this over to make sure that our stitching is in the right place and that all of our edges are meeting up. And you'll notice at the top there, I'm probably 1/16 a little bit off, but I'm okay with that. I can make up for that in my seam allowances. It's also a good idea to check the back of your piece to make sure that nothing's visible there either. We then just need to slice that excess fabric away, the back 2 layers, and press that into place. We now just need to put a sew and flip on the opposite corner of this larger square, and this time I will be using my folded corner clipper tool. To use this tool, it has the markings on there, and you line your square up perfectly in the corner the same way as we did for the traditional method. We then find the 3.5 inch mark, as that is the size of our square, and we line that up along the bottom on the right hand side, making sure also that it's lined up nicely on that left hand side, and we slice the fabric away first before we sew. I then take this to the machine and I stitch my 1/4 inch like normal and press out towards that. And we will do this same process for our remaining large square, putting the sew and flips on the opposite corners in whichever method you would like to use. With those 2 units now made, we can pull in our remaining dark and medium squares, and we just need to turn these into 2 4-patch units. The 4 patches will need to go together like a checkerboard, but we're just going to start by sewing all of our medium and darks into pairs of medium and dark, and we'll press everything to the darker of the 2 fabrics. We're now ready to turn these into our 4-patch checkerboards by taking 2 each and rotating one around and sewing our final seam. For this, you can just press in any direction that you choose, but I think that I spin the intersection, but it's not really necessary. Once these 4-patch units are made, we can lay the final block out for its final construction. When laying this out, we need to put our sew and flip units in the top left and the bottom right hand corner, making sure that those dark corner sew and flips are in the upper right and the lower left, so the opposite to where they're placed, and that on our 4-patch units, our dark squares make a diagonal across the center. We then just sew our 2 vertical seams. We will press these towards those 4-patch units. We'll then do our final horizontal seam, and our block for this week will be done. With our horizontal seam now done, just my personal preference, I am going to spin this middle intersection. Once again, it's not really necessary as it's not that bulky, but we'll just make sure that all of our seam allowances are going in the same direction, and in this instance that is counterclockwise. With this final seam pressed, as I said before, our block for this week is complete. As with every Block Wednesday pattern, Pat does give us a suggested layout using just that block, and for this week and my coloration, that is what this would look like. If you rotate every other block, you do get that secondary pattern of those big crosses in the center. As always though, if you don't want to be challenging or battling all of those seams, you can use some sashing and cornerstones, and that's what this would look like, and it's another effective quilt. You could also make this very scrappy and have a color wash across it, or whatever tickles your fancy. Thanks for joining me again today, folks. This week's block was another simple one. Just to round out, we've got 2 more to go, so stay tuned. To make sure that you don't miss anything, click that little subscribe button, but more importantly, tickle that little bell icon and you'll be notified of all my future releases and you won't miss a thing. I have quite a few more videos coming up to be released on a Saturday night. They may or may not be premieres. One will be for Hat Day, which is another sew along that Pat's doing, and Parfait Goodness, I believe, is the second one, which is also a sew along that Pat is hosting. I will have those videos up and available when each of those sew alongs are scheduled to commence. I'll see you all again real soon. Bye for now.